My name's Jack Whaley, and I'm the director of Talk to Me, Love in the Time of COVID.
My name is Kurt Henke, and I'm the writer of Talk to Me, Love in the Time of COVID. Again, this movie came out in April, which feels like probably years ago, right? Versus months that it was. One morning I was thinking about what would be the long-term consequences of this pandemic. And I sent a text to Jack that said, movie, dark comedy idea, a couple who have papered over their issues for too long, now going through therapy over Zoom. And so just thinking about, we were in that state then when it was all new and happening and there was an urgency to that moment. And so thinking about, there can't help but be unintended consequences.
I remember the phrase new normal being thrown around, like this is the new normal. And looking back on it, like I don't think we really understood what the new normal was going to be, but Kurt and I were trying to explore that very, very early on. And of course it hit different places first, and we're in Wisconsin in an urban market, but a smaller, obviously, market than somewhere like New York City. So definitely unique there. But coming at it from the point of view of every relationship is being put through these new challenges and how to adapt to this new version of normal, whatever that may be, when you can't really leave home, or at least at that time people really weren't. I mean, there were far less cases in Wisconsin, but like the roads were empty, everyone was at home. And we were, when we were conceiving this and pre-production and then quickly production very, very in a short time frame, that was our reality. So looking back on it, things have changed. There are more cases than ever, and there are traffic jams and people out and about. So it's kind of odd to look back at it from the reality we're in now, but also I think it's really neat. And we came upon it, and we took the bull by the horns and went for it, right away. And I mean, of course, other people were already creating content via Zoom, but it really, it was before any of the Saturday Night Live stuff switched over or any of that. And now, of course, soon after that, it was just a tidal wave of Zoom content. But we feel like we were pretty early on it.
Yes, we wanted everyone to be able to find themselves in the story. I mean, the goal was, again, heart and humor. I don't think we weren't consciously thinking the artifact part, because we didn't, days were very different back then, but certainly escape. And so the initial concept was just that text. Jack said, love it. I wrote a few pages that I think had 2 or 3 couples and a therapist. And then Jack and I did a jam. We just got on Zoom, which is where I have seen Jack once since March, and he was in the front of my house dropping something off from a very safe distance. And I'm pretty sure I wiped it down, no offense, Jack, after I got it. It was, we jammed on these characters. So, Jack and I both thought about couples we knew, things they were going through. So many of the things in the film, doing the puzzle, all those came from textures of real people's lives, which is, I think, where great fiction has truth in it, a little truth of detail and bigger truth of what you're going through. So the goal was to show a range of couples and individuals that were all handling this differently, so that you could find someone that was like you or find someone that wasn't like you. And again, just be taken through the journey, regardless of who exactly you were. And so, yeah, certainly that was a deliberate intent. And, the script is what, Jack? I mean, 90% of what you see is on the page, but there was a little bit of play from the actors, and we wanted them to bring that as well. So little flourishes were certainly added. And we have a world-class cadre of actors who were very charitable, and Jack has a relationship with them that he can speak to. But it was creating a thing that felt very contemporary, absolutely. And the form of Zoom, which felt like a rush to beat everyone to be a contemporary medium, that as well. So, Jack?
And I can speak to this specifically from the point of view that we use Zoom as a recording medium, which is, none of the actors we use are by far primarily theater actors, like classical theater. But but they've all done commercials. They've all done, you know, whether it's short films or indie films, they're experienced with that. So because we shot on Zoom, there was a little bit of like, what is the structure to this? What is, you know, how much can we contribute versus by we the actors versus the scripted. So they came to us with ideas, you know, and we just needed to manage, well, will it fit into our short? You know, does it fit the tone and the feel? Would the character kind of say that? And there were times when we, especially with Colleen Madden and Jim Ridge's character, who's the, you know, the woman and
Emily
the
and Jed.
is Emily and Jed, and Jed just bought a boat where Colleen Madden is just like an awesome improviser, and we have 10-minute takes of her just like totally improvising, and you know, we ended up using some of that, but most of it, like Kurt said, was what was written, and her performance and just these little ads that she and other actors would do would kind of plus it. So yeah, it was mostly written, but I guess what I'm trying to say is, normally when you're on set and the camera, you know, is set up and the whole crew is there and the clapperboard comes in, and at least from my experience, it's like it's a little more, it's more formal than Zoom. Like, we were very informal, and it was kind of odd in the way we did it. So I think the actors felt like they could definitely bring completely different ideas, which then we had to kind of say, well, we do have an arc to this story that we have to keep within. So yeah, it was a really, I mean, overall the logistics were pretty interesting and new for everyone involved, I think. I think the answer is we prepped for this a lot. Like Kurt and myself and our significant others helped us. But like we had to troubleshoot. We knew we had to troubleshoot before we filmed everything from how are we making sure we have individual recordings of single shots versus just like a gallery view. You know, we had to upgrade, of course, Zoom to a certain degree, and trying to figure out how do we get the highest quality recording, and you know, and backing it up to the cloud versus one thing or another. And I'm a director of photography and cinematographer by, you know, that's most of what I do. So early on, I needed to let go of the fact that this was not going to be lit and stylized and you know, beautiful, because it's through Zoom. So once we or I let go of that, then it's like, well, how can we make it, you know, how can we make the viewing and auditory experience as good as possible for people? And that kind of was where I came in and said we should really get professional audio on this. If we're not going to have professional imagery or you know, cameras rolling on this, let's get an audio operator. And you know, we went about that in as safe a way, and I feel really good about how we did it. We hired a local audio op, and he had fully wireless, you know, microphones, and he would bring the stand to each actor's doorstep, literally, and he'd sanitize it down, and they would bring it in, and on Zoom we would talk them into where they should place it over their laptop. And he would be outside doing, you know, saying, yes, that sounds good, or no, it doesn't. Obviously, this is all remote. Um, and so the actors would place their boom, and he would monitor it. And then they'd bring the microphone back up, and he'd sanitize it and go on to the next place. So we ended up with, I think, really high quality audio, which makes a difference. You know, it's something that the audience and viewers don't always think about, but they definitely think about it if it's not good. So that was an important logistical thing to sort out.
And I think actually the thing I would add to that is I think that was actually the joy of this film. You know, there's this great old Jack London quote that I love, which is, you can't wait around for inspiration. You have to chase after it with a stick. And so, you know, COVID hits, the inclination is just to shut down. And Jack and I have been talking about making a film, and we've got, 4, 5, 6 scripts that have gone nowhere. During this is when we leaned in and made something. And so there was just a, I don't want to say reckless, but almost just like, we just hopped on this cart and wrote it, and it was nights and weekends, and the cast got on that train as well. And some of my favorite memories are, Jim DeVita, this amazing actor that I've watched at APT for 20 years, in his home, moving the laptop around and adding a light and a cat jumping, like everyone, we were in people's closets. Their clothes were the wardrobe, right? Their laptop was the camera. Their props in the background were the props. So that it was kind of like, let's make a play, let's make a movie, right? Like there was a joyfulness to that of just we're all in together making a thing that I think contributes to some of the energy and the heartbeat of this thing as well, that we all 1 + 1 + 1 equaled 50. And the experience of making it, I think, to a person was, we all kind of needed a thing, right, at this time. And so for all of us, I think, Jack knows the actors and he can speak more to this than me. My interaction, I've only met them through Zoom or through watching them on stage at American Players Theater, was thank you. At a time when I didn't think I could make art, I made art. And so again, like, you got to chase inspiration. Just making things, the act of making is its own force. And so removing all the constraints and watching Jack navigate, Jack makes beautiful images by day. We just leaned into computer images and we made a thing. And so that was and Jack is just a joyful co-creator and wonderful human. And it's just been a joy to make it with him as well. So. I think it was a framing device because recall in March, April is when everyone was moving everything from the real world to online. And so again, I don't have any stats on how many people were doing virtual therapy pre-COVID. I'm sure it existed as a thing, right? So, my son's karate went virtual, yoga went virtual. We thought, of course, therapy would, and it became a natural vehicle that we thought would have its own awkwardness. And we worked hard to resist any of the standard tropes that I think you saw a lot in early Zoom productions of, like, I stand up and I'm not wearing pants, like the easy gets, right? You write what you know. I've been in therapy in and out of, for many years, and I find no shame in that. There's a joy of figuring yourself out and evolving as a human. And so I don't think when I wrote it and we co-created on the story, I don't think there was any intention of it destigmatizing therapy. I do think that the central thread is, it's in the name, it's talk to me. And so the goal is, like, we are better together. We are better when we can talk and we can figure things out. And so again, if an attendant benefit or outcome of this film is that it does destigmatize therapy, I think that'd be great. And I think whether it's a therapist or a friend or a parent or a whatever, we need human connection. It's in our DNA. And so I think that while it wasn't, I think, a conscious choice, I do think that the way that you look at this film now, and it's true for Jack and I, the way you look at this film now is very different than you look at it back in April. And that there was that urgency that we wanted to be the first out there, because I remember this, Jack, we were like, let's get it out there before things go back to normal. Ha ha ha. Right. We thought that was going to happen sooner than later. So yeah, I think that's a great question. Jack, what would you add, subtract?
Yeah, that's a great response. Just and we touched on this already, that we were going for that, just the idea of some escape through humor, empathy, that hopefully we're all doing the best we can, and I think that line is in it, and how we're all coming at this pandemic, and now it's much later in it, from different perspectives, different worldviews, different young couples who there's probably young couples who just decided to move in together, and then the COVID hit, to long time, many decade relationships, and just combining those, and then of course the through thread of the therapist, which is a great way just to, like, have some connective tissue throughout. And like Kurt said, this is, we were definitely conscious of the tone, and we hope it didn't come across as too light, because therapy has helped myself, it's helped Kurt, it's helped so many people, and it is a very powerful tool.
And we did get some emails from therapists, by the way, who said,
Yeah.
"Oh my gosh, you get us. This is our language."
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, like, welcome to the human condition was said to me in therapy. I mean, so, again, like you write what you know, there's truth there. So
Yeah.
we tried to really, that's a great point, Jack, be very mindful and respectful of that institution, and also of the show her as a real human at the end as well, right? I mean, she also has a therapist, which is a very common thing. So yeah, I think that
Yeah.
honoring and celebrating the power of people. Jack and I, as always, have a few ideas cooking that we're working on in the early script stages, but Jack actually has something that he is both working on and fundraising for right now. So Jack, get your pitch on, Jack.
Yeah, I'm an executive producing and also cinematographer for a short film called One Foot In, that we launched the fundraising campaign via Seed and Spark last week. It's a period piece, late 1800s. It's going to be filmed in southwestern Wisconsin, which is a beautiful, landscape. It's the driftless area where the glaciers stopped, so it's very hilly and lots of rivers and rock faces and stuff. And it's about two grave robbers who are navigating their complex relationship while on their way to kind of search for the score of a lifetime. And we're using, again, use what you have, and we have fantastic, brilliant actors via American Players Theater. So we're using actually two of the actors who were in Talk to Me, Jimmy DeVita and Marcus Straczynski. And after Talk to Me, American Players Theater canceled their season like virtually every performing arts company or organization. And so that gave that's a really hard thing. It put a ton of artists out of work. But also that gave us this short film we're working on is kind of like, how can we hire actors, and not only actors but crew, technicians, costume designers, um, all the people that I work with in commercial film aspect who have had a really rough year. So our goal is to fully pay all these crew and actors through this fundraising.